All right, welcome to the next level. Got my man Dipo Adesina with us. How we doing, Dipo?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. Thanks for coming up.
My pleasure.
We're going to talk about some stuff today that I think is essential to what you do. So you sell, not primarily, solely IULs, is that true?
Yes, correct.
And you sell a lot. You're already Hall of Fame this year, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Last year, you were 545, I believe.
Yeah, something along that line.
First year, somewhere. You're so much high. You don't even know the numbers are so high.
Right.
And then the first year, you were like 377.
Yes.
So just missed. But my point is, you sell a lot, and that's why you're qualified to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Sure.
Your process is a little different than there's people that create content out there, but you're not buying leads. You're creating content to generate your own leads.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the keys to what you do, and also one of the keys to what anyone who is buying leads and selling insurance that way, is the fact that you guys are both educating your clients.
Yes.
Because an IUL is foreign to most clients.
It is.
You know, if you're selling final expense, most of the time the clients have some knowledge of what it is, right? You may have to explain, okay, well, our product does this versus that one, but they understand that I pay a premium. When I die, my family has something to cover the funeral.
That is correct, yeah.
Mortgage protection, same deal. They may not know all the ins and outs, but they know that, hey, if I die, there's money to cover the mortgage, family doesn't lose a house. IUL to some, dude, you say that, they're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Exactly.
So can you bring us through, Dipo, in your opinion, what are some of the most important things you need to educate your client on as far as IULs before you get into, I'm going to sell you this policy, right? Because a lot of agents screw themselves up because, they get on a call, they get an appointment, whatever, and they just come flat out like sales mode. And the guy's like, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Correct.
So talk to me about some of the most important aspects of the IUL that you need to educate your client on before you sell.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really making sure that agents understand that you have to know the purpose of why they want this product.
Okay.
So you talked about final expense. Most people know that when they pass away, this is what happens. You talk about mortgage protection. Those are very cut and dry as to what they do, while IUL can be used for so many different purposes. So the first thing I always tell, at least my agents, is that you have to know why the client wants this particular policy. Mm-hmm. For example, one of my agents reached out to me yesterday that she has a potential client, 61 years old, who wants to put in $500 into an IUL a month. So my next question is, what is this person's goal? Mm-hmm. And she said it's for, growth, for growth.
Okay.
And immediately I thought to myself, this may not be the best product for this client, because at 61, for it to make sense, because it can make sense,
right, you
have to put in a lot of money.
Right.
So it's better off you use maybe an annuity where you can do month-to-month contribution, or others, some other type of financial instrument.
Got it.
So the first step is understanding that your client's need will determine whether or not this is a good product for them and whether or not it can be designed to meet that need.
So get their goal first.
100%.
Okay.
Right? So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is to help them understand what the product can and cannot do. A lot of people try to portray IUL as an investment. It is not an investment, right? Now, even though it feels like an investment, the first thing is that primarily it's an insurance policy.
Right.
So when I'm talking to a client, I let them know first and foremost that this is a life insurance policy. It is not an investment, cannot be treated as investment. Mm-hmm. But when you understand the tax codes that governs these policies, it does allow you to put your money in a position where it can accumulate money over time.
Right.
So that's where that, the whole structuring IUL comes into play. So oftentimes people would say, make sure your IUL is structured properly. Mm-hmm. Well, what does that mean, right? It means that if a client's going to get this policy, it needs to be designed in a way that can fit their individual goals, not everybody's goals.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's like the biggest thing. Like, number one, understanding what they're trying to do with the policy, understanding that it's not an investment, and explaining that it's not an investment, but also sharing with them how the policy can help them to accumulate money over time. Now, in doing that piece, it's also important to let them know how your money's protected inside the policy.
Okay.
Because it's not, so when you say something is an investment, that means it has the ability to go up and to come down. That is what an investment is.
Right.
There's risk associated with it. So as an agent, you have to be able to explain what indexing means to your client so they understand that, hey, you know, when you put money inside of a life insurance contract, your money's protected because X, Y, and Z. And that's where the educational piece comes in as a life insurance agent, where you got to understand a product before you go out trying to sell it to anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what, number 3?
Yep.
Then number 4 is helping them to understand how to access money from the policy.
Okay.
Especially for those who want to use it for cash accumulation.
Yeah.
There's several ways to access money. You can withdraw the money, and you can also take it out as a loan. Now, under tax code 7702, it's better off you take it out as a loan because now all that growth is not subject to taxes, because you don't pay taxes on loans.
Correct.
But if you withdraw the money, and this is where a lot of clients ask the question, why do I have to borrow my own money? Mm-hmm. Now, as an agent, if you don't understand how that whole dynamic works, you might get caught up in that conversation. Yeah. So first thing, your client is not borrowing their own money, right? When depending on what, you know, whether you're using the, you know, just the indexing loan or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. But it's important to let them know that when you're accessing a loan from the policy, technically speaking, your money remains in your cash value account, right? If you access it the right way, while the insurance company loans you whatever you're trying to, you know, leverage from the policy, if that makes sense, right? So that kind of gives you the ability to leverage the little margin depending on how the index performs.
Yeah.
So that's the 4th thing, which is explaining how accessing money from the policy works in order not to trigger the, you know, paying taxes on that money. And then the last thing is the fees. You know, a lot of people shy. I see this all the time on social media where people will say, well, talk about the fees. And to me, it's not something that I shy away from because I understand the product. Yeah. Anything that you put money into that helps your money to grow will have some fees associated with it. Sure. Now, the unfortunate part is that a lot of agents don't know how to minimize those fees. Mm-hmm. And that's why it always goes back to that educational piece, that if you don't understand the product, you can think you're doing something right, but in the truth of the matter is you're actually hurting the client because they're paying so much fees throughout the course of the policy that eats into the cash value. I'll give you an example. I'm working with a client now who got a policy 3 years ago. He was 31 or 32 at the time, young guy. Yeah. He's paying $300 a month for a $700,000 face amount. Okay. So my first question was, well, did you tell the agent that you were interested in a $700,000 policy? Right. Or is your primary goal to have a large death benefit to protect your family? His response was, no, I wanted to build or accumulate cash value to use later on in life. Got it. And I said, what you have is a horribly designed IUL policy. You got the opposite of that. You got the complete opposite. So I asked for his illustration. We looked at it, and under the surrender values, 0, 0, 0, and then year 4, maybe like $200 something. So I told him, I said, do you know that after 3 to 4 years, if you decide to cancel this policy, if that was your choice, you've completely lost everything you've put into it because more of your premium was going towards the face amount.
Yeah, almost all of it.
Almost everything.
Yeah.
And you weren't building, any cash value. He got a policy for his now 22-month-old child. Mm-hmm. The child has a $500,000 death benefit, and he's contributing $175,000. Yeah. So my question was, did you ask for $500,000? No, I was trying to build something towards college. I said, this is a poorly designed policy. Yeah. So this goes back to, number one, as an agent, you understanding the product and making sure that you're designing the policy to meet the need of the client and not something that favors you as an agent.
Yeah. Which is why that first point is so important, right? Before you get into anything else is what's your goal?
You got to ask those questions.
Right. Because if his goal is, hey, most insurance I could possibly get, well, then you're in the right policy, bro.
Exactly.
But if it's not, which it wasn't, it was set up incorrectly.
Correct.
So recap, you got number one, figure out their goal,
Yep.
right? Number two, explain to them what the IUL can and can't do,
Yep.
which is a huge part. Because I think a lot of times where people get messed up is they just tell you what it can do.
Exactly.
Because they're afraid to tell you what it can't.
And then because they may not buy from
Right.
it, which is okay.
Yeah. But you know what happens? I think when they walk down that path, it sounds too good to be true. Because if everything is great, listen, you put your money in, and there's nothing's going to happen to your money. Everything's perfect. You're going to get these great returns, blah, blah, blah. It sounds too good to be true.
Absolutely.
You do need to tell them the downside, right?
Yep.
Maybe the downside to them isn't a huge down, but be transparent.
Exactly.
So you got, what it can and cannot do.
Yep.
Then explain indexing.
Yep.
I mean, of your clients, Dipo, what percentage already know what indexing is before you talk to them?
Zero.
Zero.
I didn't know what indexing was until I got into the insurance industry.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's why learning is so important. I cannot overemphasize that.
Right.
Because if you sell something to somebody that they don't understand, a year or so later, when they finally do understand, they realize that what you got them, just like this client, is wrong, they'll cancel it and get something new.
And they'll never talk to you again.
Yep, because they think you screwed them.
Yep. So you got understand indexing.
Yep.
And then number 4, the loans. How does it work? Or just money in general in your policy? How do you access your money?
Exactly.
You have to understand the difference between loans and withdrawals.
Yep.
And then the 5th one was the fees.
Exactly.
Be up front. Hey, this is a fee right here that you're going to pay. It's going to come out of your premium, but this is part of it.
Exactly.
And it's fully transparent.
Very transparent.
Now,
so in some cases, you may not even have to explain the fees.
Yeah.
But I do see sometimes where clients will ask me, hey, what are the fees? Because they're seeing so many stuff on social media now, especially with agents from other industries who primarily sell term, they're bashing IULs. They're bashing whole life.
Yep.
So now they're quote unquote exposing IULs. So if you get on a phone with a client who's seen all these videos and you're not on your A game, they'll definitely catch you in your trap. So you gotta understand or know what you're talking about to be able to balance what they're saying to what the facts are.
And the only way you're gonna do that is by educating yourself, 1, and then 2, by activity, meeting with clients.
Absolutely.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about the education that you did prior to going out and selling IULs.
So I think I guess we call it a practice company, right?
Yep.
So my practice company, I didn't wait for my manager or corporate training or anything like that because I wanted to get this information as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So to do that, I literally called the carrier, called the sales department that I want to learn this product. And the sales guy was very generous, scheduled 3 consecutive meetings where I learned things I never heard before, even from the person who introduced me to it.
Right.
So that was my introduction to it, but I didn't stop there. So I went on YouTube. I mean, I literally have every book you can think about when it comes to like cash value life insurance.
Yeah.
Because you're always learning something new.
Right.
So did that, constantly learning on YouTube, subscribing and paying for different things to always keep me at the edge of the industry and the product. So the more I learned, the more I was better able to educate people on how the product works. And the more I educated them, the easier it was for me to get clients to do business with.
Yeah. And dude, everybody has access to this stuff.
Everybody.
Like the guy you talked to at the company, they're sitting there waiting for you to
That's
call.
their job.
Right.
That's what they get paid
most
for.
Most of these carriers have created sales desks that, you're right, they get paid to wait for you to call and go, hey, explain this to me.
Yep.
Dude, I bet you didn't have to push them much to set up those Zooms.
Nah. I could have done as many meetings as I wanted to because, once again, that's their job.
Yeah.
And if I don't understand something, you have to educate me on how it works.
Right. And dude, to figure it out, who better to go to than the company that created the product, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure your upline, your manager, someone may be able to help you, but you're dealing with a manager that may have 100 agents to work with.
Yeah.
So he can help you, but it's time. I mean,
it's not to the extent that I would like to be helped.
Exactly. So you were able to get 3 consecutive meetings.
Absolutely.
With a guy who works for the company that built the product, who knows all the ins and outs.
Correct.
Dude, that's like you're going to buy a car. Instead of talking to the sales guy, you're back there talking to the mechanic like, bro, what's this do?
Yep, exactly.
And how's that work?
Yeah. You get a better understanding. To me, like anytime you understand something, it makes the whole process easier to use what the product, or more importantly, educate people and attract people to you, because now you're seen as a subject matter expert.
Right.
A lot of people start thinking, right now people think that I've been in the industry for 10 years, 15 years because of the way that I communicate.
Yeah.
And it's not because I've been in for that long. I've been in just going on 3 years now.
Right.
But because I'm always learning and sharing what I learned, it's like, man, that guy, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, you've done the education of someone that's been in here probably 5+ years.
Yeah.
But it's like all of this is out there.
It's
like, yeah, you bought some books. I'm sure you paid for some stuff. But from someone, you could invest nothing and learn, 80% of what you know on
100%. Yeah. Go on YouTube, on TikTok.
Yeah.
Call the company. There are tons of free resources. If you don't have money to invest on paid stuff,
right,
they would still put you at the cutting edge, as opposed to someone who is selling a product but has very limited knowledge on how it works.
There's the excuse of I didn't know, or the guy who recruited me doesn't sell IULs, or that's not what those excuses are all out the window because you have access to all of this.
Direct access.
Yeah. The other thing is you talked about what some of the people selling term and find what they're putting out. You also got to know the landscape. Like you're on social. Mm-hmm. You're watching videos in your space.
Yep.
Not scrolling through mindless shit, but you know what's out there, so that when a client brings it up, that ain't the first time you're like, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw the video on TikTok.
Yeah.
You should be armed for that.
Exactly.
Know what's out there.
And one of the other things, too, that's helped with me is that my market, and that's why you got to have a niche in this business.
Yeah.
Everybody's not your target audience. So, like, my market, the people that I talk to, they're not, quote-unquote, buy-term invest the difference folks. I'm talking to people who have money. I'm talking to people who are already investing, their own businesses.
Yeah.
So they understand the value of my product. So even if they did see somebody who's talking about, buy-term invest the difference, IUL, whole life is garbage, that's not their language because they know what they want.
Right.
So as an agent, you have to be able to carve out your own personal niche that is out of the general population, where, if you're targeting people who maybe, let's say, they're making $40,000 a year, they're living paycheck to paycheck. To me, buy term invest the difference makes sense for those people. Mm-hmm. And if that's your primary audience, from an IUL standpoint, it may be a little bit tough because you're literally competing with people who will beat you every single day,
right,
based on pricing.
Yeah.
So it's so much to this whole business that you got to be well versed in to be able to build something that's sustainable.
Yeah. I think knowing your client in whatever you're selling, knowing your client is the first step.
Absolutely.
Whether if you're selling mortgage or final expense, know your client. Know what's when we didn't sell a lot of IULs back in the day. We sold mostly mortgage and final.
Right.
But I knew what type of leads they were getting. I knew the mailers that were being sent. I knew what the other carrier or other companies were offering them. I knew what their perception of mortgage protection was. A lot of them thought it was something they got through the bank, but we knew all that going into
Sure.
it.
Yeah, that's good.
But you have to.
Yeah.
You got to know what's out there so that when it gets thrown at you, you know how to respond and answer, but it takes work.
Absolutely.
And that's what, people think, or not everyone, people think that, he's just so much better. He's just a better salesman. No, he's just doing a lot more work than you.
Exactly.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the best bodybuilders of all time, right? I read his book years ago, and I forget who he was talking about, but he was doing an interview, and somebody said something along the lines of I would never want to look like you, because he's just so big, and he responded with, "Don't worry, you won't." Do you know what it takes to
do that?
Right? People, you're on steroids. Okay, he's got to eat right. He's got to be in the gym nonstop.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle.
It's a whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
Just like what you're doing, it's a lifestyle.
Facts.
You eat, breathe, and sleep this.
Yep.
Right? In order
Absolutely.
to be prepared so that whatever is thrown at you, you know how to handle it.
Exactly.
And I do think a piece of it we haven't touched on yet, but I would assume that you also have to really care about clients.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you didn't, you wouldn't go above and beyond to educate them and make sure they understand everything. Because that helps you also, but it also helps your client. You're doing right by your client.
It does. I strongly believe that, because in this business, where, you know, as much as we like to help clients, we also want to make money.
Yeah.
But you'll be in a situation where you know certainly that this product is not the right fit. At that point, you have a choice that, do I care more about the client, or do I care more about my pockets? And going back to the example that I gave to you about my agent who talked about the 60, I said, listen, this is not the right product for this person. Yes, you'll make good money, but if we are trying to help this person who's saying they're trying to grow their money, what is the best vehicle for them? IUL is not the best vehicle. No. It could be maybe them put money into some type of mutual funds or, you know, whatever, and they can see better growth because they're not paying for cost of insurance. So you have to genuinely care about people if you're going to make it in this business. If not, it's going to show. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's not easy to walk away from a deal, especially when you're new. You need to make money. You know, and a lot of agents come to us in a spot where they're trying to get out of financially, right? I'm stuck here. I'm trying whatever. And you're essentially walking, or you could look at them walking away from money.
It is.
But I look at it like you're not walking away, because if you sell them the wrong product, eventually they're going to cancel.
And then now you're in a deeper trouble.
You're in deeper trouble. And whatever you believe in, dude, whether it's religion, spiritual, whatever it is, I believe that if you put out bad karma, it's going to come back to get you.
It's coming back.
It will.
Like, it's sowing and reaping. Like it always comes back. It may take a year, it may take 2 years, but you'll pay for it at some point.
Last thing, who was the first IUL you sold, or who was it to?
I'd probably say my kids.
Your kids?
Yeah.
And you sold them to yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a big piece, too, that we lose sight of now. Like, if you don't believe in the product enough to own it,
don't sell it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of agents are doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, like, even for me, like, the integrity to tell you about something that's good for you.
Yeah.
And I know I can qualify for it and I don't have it.
Right.
It just bad on all levels.
Yeah. Like, how do you answer that question? So which one of these do you have, Dipo? You're like, I don't have any of this.
Yeah.
No, I got a term with return of premium. What are you talking about?
Or you're forced to lie in the moment.
That too, yeah.
And that's just, I mean, to me, it's just
bad karma, dude.
Unethical and everything, right?
Right.
But when you have, and this has helped me so much, that when you have the product, you have a different confidence level, because they'll ask you certain questions like, I got my policy. Like, for example, I have whole life, mutual whole life, where I'm able to do like be your own bank.
Yep.
When I get clients like that, I'm so happy because I actually use it like in real stuff. So I can speak from personal knowledge or experience as opposed to telling you how it could work.
Yep.
Right. So for any agent who's selling an IUL or you're selling whole life, you better make, even if it's a $50,000 policy, have something.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because someday somebody's going to ask you, what do you have?
Yep.
How's your policy performing?
Absolutely. We back in the day, we were all in home. We didn't have virtual.
Yeah.
I had a mortgage protection, return of premium policy on myself.
Nice.
And I had an IUL on myself. And I kept those policies in my bag.
Nice.
So when that question came up, I go, I'll show you. Look, here's mine. I've had it for X amount of years. Here's my cash value, whatever. Or, I got the return of premium. I got the mortgage protection. Here's mine.
That you've already closed the deal.
Absolutely.
Like 80% at that point.
But if you don't, your first policy should be on yourself if you don't have one.
100%.
And then your kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everybody in your family should be covered.
Yep. 100%, dude. So. Well, hey man, I appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure.
I really
my
do.
Pleasure.
Top 5 or most important aspects of the IUL and what your client needs to be educated on before you purchase or before they purchase.
Yep.
And before you get into sales mode, educate them first.
Exactly.
Whether that's through you verbally educating them over the phone. You're doing a lot of content, so
sure.
I'm sure they're seeing this stuff first.
Yep.
Some agents send their clients videos to watch. But whatever you're doing, go through these steps before you get into, hey, how much you want to put in this? Hey, you want to fill this out? You educate them.
Facts.
Take care of your clients. So
absolutely.
Well, appreciate you, Dipo. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for checking us out. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. You know where to find us every week right here on The Next Level. We'll see you next week.